Hello, welcome to Become the Change. My name is Sandy Leveque. Apologies for the slightly crazy hair. I had quite a hectic day and got very excited about tonight's hangout because this is a topic that I personally just love. And I'm going to explain to you a lot of useful information which actually downloaded into my brain this afternoon while I was on the beach. I had this idea for the hangout coming for a couple of days, and then it just suddenly all streamed through. I don't know if you ever have that when you're thinking about something or something's on your mind, and you know that you've got something to share, and just all this amazing information comes together. So I've got a lot to share with you tonight. So I encourage you, actually, this is very geeky, to take a pen and paper and to make some notes here, because if you're here, there's a reason for that. We have a lot of people actually watching. So welcome to you all. If you have questions, you can leave them in the Q&A. You should be able to see a button that says Q&A on the video that you're watching this, whether you're watching this on my blog or on Google or on one of my team members' blogs. So welcome to you all, or if you're watching this in the future. So my name's Sandy, in case you don't know anything about me. I actually used to be a campaigner and an activist for a long time. Oh, hi Jane, we've got Jane here, Jane Painter. Well, I've just realized that sometimes when I see people, when you watch the video afterwards, you can't always see. So do you just want to say hi, Jane?
Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. I'm going to speak for everybody. Jane's out in Canada at the moment. Yeah, so great to have you here, Jane. And I've just forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, I know, because I was actually going to do something which I'm just going to do in a second here. Well, I've just left a dramatic cliffhanger now, and I'm a bit, hang on, 1 second, here it comes, get ready. This is going to be very serious. Welcome, Jane. Welcome to the Hangout. Jane's actually one of my team members. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I was like, there's something else I should add here. So happy to have you here, and I was just saying, yeah, that I'm not going to go into it a long time at all, because I just want to give people a bit of context for why I'm running these hangouts. I used to be a campaigner and an activist in London, campaigning against poverty and then for women's rights, for gender equality, for 10 years. Got very ill, realized that I was always unhappy, basically, doing that and getting other people to be unhappy about stuff as well, and I had a huge change of direction, which, long story short, has led me to do these hangouts, because I know that there are people out there like you, like Jane, like everyone watching and watching in the future, who that just getting up, doing your thing, having fun, or actually the part of what is fun for you is doing weird hangouts like this, or talking about activism, or thinking about what you'd like to see in the world, about why you do what you do. And tonight's hangout is going to give you a lot of clarity about how you can actually start a movement, how you can actually have a clearer sense of the changes you want to see in the world. And I'm actually just looking at my notes here, because I had so much that I wanted to share that I was like, I've got to write it down to make sure I don't forget anything. And more clarity about how to channel the energy that you have for the things that you care about. Because sometimes when you care a lot about the environment or the world or animals or people, it can be hard to know where to put that energy. Like, for example, I remember when I was at university, there were so many issues that I was passionate about, like racism was a big thing, the student movement, because at the time I was at university in England, which is like college in America, they were changing the whole structure of it to be more like America. I was also always passionate about women's rights and violence against women, and then poverty, and I had all these things. I honestly felt like every time I looked out of a window or opened a newspaper, turned on the TV, there was another problem that needed fixing. And my invitation to you with these hangouts is, what if we can actually celebrate what's already right about the world and take action towards what we can also add to the world, so that your time here on this planet has made an imprint of some kind. So you'll get more clarity about how to channel that energy so that it's not like all over the place. You'll get more information about the science behind a movement. It's actually not that complicated, but there's amazing I read an amazing book about this recently, and I just want to share with you like the really simple part when it's broken down to its most basic format. Because when you understand this, it makes it a lot easier to really know your own power in creating a movement and leading a movement and becoming part of the movement. And then how to avoid the pitfalls when you are motivated by stuff that we're going to be talking about. Because sometimes that can lead you down dodgy paths, and I've personally been there, so I wanted to add that in. How to, like a concrete way to actually start your own movement after this Hangout has finished. And I'm also just going to say from the start, I'll also be sharing the movement that I'm part of at the end, and a way for you to join it if that is like what you'd like to do. So I just want to be transparent and say I will be sharing that, the movement that Jane's part of and my other team members. But as you can hear, there's a hell of a lot of stuff coming before that. So I encourage you to stick around, and whether or not you want to do something with us or not, because you're going to get a lot of information in a clear way that will help you have more sense that you can actually really have an impact in the world. And I think that's one of the most empowering things you can have, because very much of the time we believe we can't have an impact. So I actually want to show you a quick video, which, Jane, it's really funny that you're here because you were actually one of the people that told me about this video. Your initial thoughts about this topic, like what is one change that you would like to see in the world, you know, that you would like to help be part of? It could be anything. It doesn't have to be, you know, within what we do together. It could be something totally different.
Okay, I missed the first part of that. You froze a bit for me, but you want me to talk about a movement that I'd like to be a part of?
Yeah, like what's one change you'd like to see in the world that you'd like to help create?
Oh man, I've never really been asked that. That's interesting. I guess something that I'd like to be a part of and actually maybe start the movement would be people knowing that they have something inside of them that needs to be shared. And that's, we all have a purpose. And yeah, so we all need to know how to unlock that.
Yeah.
That's the movement I'd like to start or be a part of.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And oh, I've just realized my video is starting already. Hang on. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah. As you're saying that, it makes me realize that sometimes people think a movement is like this big. You know, they think of the civil rights movement or the feminist movement in the 70s. The cool thing, which you'll realize as we go through this Hangout and the information I have for you, I also have some slides because I'm a bit of a visual person. I find it easier to take in information when I can see it physically with my eyes as well as hear it. So you'll be getting that in a second. But what I would love for people to take away from this Hangout, and my intention really is that everyone can see the capacity that we each have to start our own movement, you know, in a real, I'm not just saying that in like yeah, create a movement and have a hashtag and like a kind of a fluffy, airy-fairy way. I mean in like tangible ways where you're actually creating ripple effects through the world. And I'm not talking about, you know, in 2 weeks. This is probably like going to take a while. But when you set your intention to something, you can really move reality way quicker than a lot of people realize. I've personally experienced this, and I just can't wait to share it, actually. So what you just described, Jane, there's a real power behind that, and you can start to actually create those ripples that will help leave that in the world after you've long gone. And that sounds really finalistic, but you know what I mean, like in a way where where it's not just no one heard what you said, where in a way where you were heard and you had an impact on people, because that's one of the best feelings in the world. Not for everyone, and there's a lot of people who would never even be interested in this Hangout, but I was aware of that before I created it, and I knew that there are people out there who are looking for this information, who are change makers, and that if you don't do this stuff, you just won't feel the same. Yeah, I've also lived that. So I'm actually going to show the video that I wanted to share on this topic. It's actually pretty hilarious, so get ready to laugh. And thank you, Jane, for bringing it to my attention. It's just so perfect. So here we go. Hopefully, Jane, can you see my my screen and the TED logo?
Yes.
You can. Cool. I'm going to make it full screen so that everyone can see, and I'm just going to get it going. So it's about 3 minutes. So watch, guys, because this is really entertaining and illuminating. Oh. Okay. Apparently, we weren't meant to do that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, at TED, we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch the movement happen, start to finish, under 3 minutes, and dissect lessons from it. First, of course, you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader.
I love that part.
The second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts. Three is a crowd, and a crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come two more people, and immediately after, three more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So, notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those who were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, it would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that, TED. Thanks.
I love that. I'm just gonna come back here. Yeah, it's such a brilliant TED talk. It's only 3 minutes, and
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna come back. And yeah, it just perfectly demonstrates such a brilliant point about movements and how actually it's not often what people think it is. You know, it's not about some kind of glorious leader like Stalin or someone not really glorious, like leading a bunch of people. It's actually like this. It becomes like this this force of energy, like that everyone is a part of, and that just starts to spread like fire. So I've got some more information I want to add to Derek and what he was sharing there. Jane, is there anything you wanted to add before I get into my my geeky presentation?
No, go geek out on us. Go for it.
Okay, cool. If you can let me know if the screen, if the slides don't show or anything, or for any reason, I'll just check in with you every now and then just to make sure that it's all showing.
I'll give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Cool, thank you. Oh, actually, you'll need to just say it out loud, because otherwise, because I'll only see the presentation actually.
Okay,
just feel free to jump in. And also, if there's anything you want to add at any point, then just feel free to jump in as well. All right, cool. Okay, guys, so how to start a movement. So, by the way, I have a really, I keep playing out with new Google presentation formats. I'm not quite sure about this one. Looks a little bit 70s, but once I got started with it, it was too complicated to change. So you have to forgive the slightly 70s vibe I've got going on here, or you might love it. Hopefully the latter. I'm kind of in between. So, so how to start a movement. I already shared what you're going to get out of this Hangout. So I'm not going to go through that again. But what I want to just quickly go through as to sort of set the backdrop for what we're talking about here. And we're only going to be about 20, 25 minutes or so. So it's not going to be a massively long Hangout, but I know that you're going to get out of this a lot of clarity and concrete ideas about what you can do next. And that is really important. Sometimes we have a lot of passion for something, we know we want to do something, but we don't know, we don't know what dance moves to do, like that guy dancing on the field, you don't know which song to pick or how to, like, which field to go to, and we kind of think about the different pieces for so long that we end up not taking any action. And when you're what I'm about to show, that can actually be quite detrimental, because you might have come across these color-coded types of personalities, especially if you're doing any kind of marketing. I know my team members will definitely recognize this. If you were in Charlotte, a live event we all went to recently, well, actually some of us, but basically if you don't know what this is, that's totally fine. And if you've already seen it, then I encourage you just to be present with it, because you'll probably see this in a new way. And basically, this is a very simplified code for 4 types of personality, you could say, that most people fit into. And there's a lot of debate about this, people saying, well, most people don't fit into one category only. And yes, that's right. A lot of people are a mix of 2 or 3. Often what happens, though, is that people tend to be more one slightly than the others. And sometimes you're blatantly just one way more than any of the others. And what it is, as you can see here, there's this red type personality, a driver, they call it in this particular example, someone who's focused on results, who likes to take charge, who makes quick decisions, who likes challenges, someone who's like literally that fiery energy, like achievers often. I was about to say overachiever, that's not really the right way to put it. Achiever is what you could also call it. And often these are leaders because, they would like to take charge. So they're often leading, showing the way. They don't necessarily want to have a community or a movement around them, but by the sheer fact that they just head out and sort of start to stand out from the masses, people start to follow them. So that's a red personality. Then we have a blue personality, which is more kind of spontaneous and expressive. They like to create excitement and involvement and to share ideas and dreams and enthusiasm and to motivate, to inspire and persuade. And this is more of a personality a little bit like Richard Branson. He's kind of not afraid to do crazy things like drive into Times Square and fire Virgin Cola out of a tank, which is what he did at a time when he was launching Coke, Virgin's Coke, and Coca-Cola, the company, hired a massive team to put out the flame of Virgin, and he took it very tongue-in-cheek and went into Times Square and started shooting out Virgin Cola. Obviously got a lot of headlines, and just a very fun thing to do. That's a very kind of blue thing. They're very much about the ideas that they have, the things they see. And then we have the green color here, analytical. These are people that often, I hate to use cliches, but this just seems to happen a lot. Often they'll be, they like facts and logic. They like to know, what's going to be the result if I do this. They don't get into things very quickly because they have to do some analysis first to work out, do I want to do this? Is what's going to be the result here? Is it what I want? And they often, engineers, accountants are good examples of this kind of personality. And then we have yellow, amiable. Other people call it helper. Basically, these people like to cooperate to gain agreement on things. They like to provide support. They like communication. They like to communicate trust and confidence. So they like to connect with people and to have like networks and movements. And here's the part that is probably relevant to you if you're watching this Hangout. In fact, I'd say like 80% chance that this is relevant to you because you wouldn't be here otherwise. Another name for it is humanistic, and Oprah Winfrey is a good example of this. And a yellow personality tends to thrive in team-based environments where there's collaboration. They like social media because they can connect with people on it. And they like, and here's a crucial part, fighting for a cause and promoting that cause. So I wanted to just share this with you, even if you've already seen it, because I know the more I sort of find out more about this, it gives me a new layer of awareness about how I function and how other people that are similar to me function in the world. And when you're, no matter what you're doing, but especially if you're doing something where you're a bit of a thought leader, or perhaps you're a writer or a blogger, or you make videos, or maybe you're a wellness person, but you also blog and you educate people in some way. It's useful to know why you do what you do and what drew you to that in the first place and what makes you tick. Because what I realized when I first saw this was that as I mentioned at the beginning, I was a campaigner and an activist. I remember going to protests and meetings and sitting in the back of the room, listening to a speaker and just getting so full of inspiration and wanting to take action after the meeting, and going to other meetings and then going to protests and organizing petitions, and all of that literally made me come alive when I first started doing it. And it did for the next 10 years. I thought actually I would do it my whole life until I got very ill. And what happened actually was that when I wasn't doing this, before discovering my love of activism, I remember feeling as though I was coming alive when I first started realizing how much I loved it. If you've ever had those moments where you just start feeling like, you wake up with this sense of inspiration, and you're genuinely inspired to do what you're going to do that day, no matter what it is. And even if sometimes it's stuff that you do on a regular basis, there's always new inspiration coming in. I literally felt like that. And because I was now doing something that was linked to my personality, for many years before that I wasn't at all. And I didn't really grow up in an environment where there was stuff like team-based things, apart from sports. Sports can be kind of competitive. And actually, after getting ill, I stopped doing any activism because I thought that had made me ill. But over time, and if you've ever felt like something's just missing, or something's not quite right, but you can't put your finger on it, this might ring some bells for you too. I started to feel like something was missing, and it took a lot of reflection, really, but I realized gradually, it took a while, that I wasn't doing anything for a cause, for something bigger than my week-to-week life, I was teaching Zumba classes, and that was kind of linked to, I wanted to make people happy, but it just wasn't really as fulfilling as what I'd been doing before. And about 18 months ago, I became part of a completely different movement to anything I'd done before, and that started to make me feel like I was coming alive again. So I just wanted to share that with you, because if you are a yellow personality, which you probably have some aspect of it in you, if you're drawn to watch this video or be on this live hangout, then acknowledging that energy that you are, or that's part of you rather, and channeling it is going to make a lot of difference, because you can actually become powerful beyond your wildest imagination, is what I found. Because when I started to realize, wow, I really enjoy this activism stuff, and I was doing it in my spare time, and I remember going to meetings, after lectures and in between work shifts, and it was just so enjoyable. Once I actually made that my profession, I was able to move mountains with a group of women. We created a movement, and I'm going to come back and talk about this in a little while. But, you know, this is us outside number 10 Downing Street, which is the British Prime Minister's house. And we had collected 10,000 signatures. This was before social media. This was back in 2007. And so we weren't using YouTube or Facebook at all. I didn't even use Facebook. And we had done this all through telephone calls, through meetings, through regional meetings, through word to mouth, and through emails. We were using email at the time. But basically, just to illustrate that when you find out what makes you tick, it will really carry you so far, because we had no idea that we could change British law because of this petition and other things that we did. In less than 2 years, with literally little more than one laptop and my bicycle, and my colleague here with the curly hair, her bicycle, we would literally cycle to Parliament because we were too broke to get cabs or get buses, because we were living on very little salaries as campaigners. But we changed British law and made the Prime Minister renegotiate a big piece of law that he'd introduced a few years before. And we got onto national TV almost on a weekly basis for just over a year, became very well known. I became a consultant to other women's organizations because our campaign came out of nowhere and just did so much. It kind of raised the bar for what was possible in campaigns for women in a way that hadn't been done for a long time. Obviously, I'm not talking about, you know, as spectacular as what the suffragettes did, who got the right for women to vote in Britain back at the early 1900s. But basically, when you channel the energy that you are, it will take you very far. And that rhymes, which is pretty cool, which I didn't intend. So just a personal example there, just to show you that, you know, I'm not showing this to sort of say, oh, wow, check it out, you know, I was a consultant and changed British law, because as you can see, I didn't do this on my own. It's not just me standing in front of the door. There was a whole bunch of us, and this, my partner Anna here, we worked together so closely with volunteers here and here. These are politicians that were like our voices in Parliament, who went really out on a limb and spoke out for us, even though a lot of their male colleagues, if you've ever watched a British Parliament meeting, you'll see it's mainly men. And it feels like going back 200 years, because they literally speak in grunts. So we had these women speaking out on our behalf, 4 of them here in this picture. And it was a real beautiful example of collaboration and a movement, because this is just a few of us. You know, there was literally 200 people making this happen. And this was actually a great example of what we saw in the TED video, because when it started, it was just me and her and some people who aren't in this picture, like 4 or 5 of us in living rooms and offices, just having chats and brainstorming, masterminding. And then it started to grow. We built an alliance, and then we built a tribe. And I'm going to get into this in the next slide, actually, but just wanted to show you this as a real-life example of what we're talking about and the value that this has, because when you understand it, it gives you a new level of awareness that helps you just, you know, get there faster, basically. And that's what you want at the end of the day. So is that all making sense, Jane? Just want to...
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so then the science behind a movement. You know, we saw in that TED Talk that you need a leader, basically someone who's willing to just go first, and followers, you know. And he talked about the importance of having followers and how actually they're actually just as important as a leader, which I totally agree with. And what I want to add to that as an extra layer of information just to have in your toolbox is there's an amazing book called The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg, a New York Times bestseller. And he's a New York Times journalist, so the book's really easy to read. It's not academic at all. It's very readable, really entertaining. And he uses tons of case studies, which is what I love, like stories. And basically, the book is about habits as individuals, habits that organizations have, and then habits that create movements. And this, I think, is what you can add to what that video was showing, because that's like the starting point. But then how do you, like, how, you know, how does it happen when it's not just a dance in a field, you know? How does a movement actually happen? And he studied a lot of different movements, and what he boiled it down to was these three things that you can see here. And the first one being close ties and friendships. So the first few people that really, that are like those first followers in that video, you know, the ones that, they're the first ones, and because by virtue that they're the first followers to come along, they tend to be closer to the leader because they trusted, they took a bigger leap of faith than, let's say, the 100th person down the line. It doesn't mean that they're more important or better. It's more like a question of timing is how I see it. And then the second layer is loose ties. So more like you see in communities and neighborhoods. And I've got a really juicy example actually of this. The Rosa Parks story is actually a really amazing example of this. So just want to give you the framework for it first though. So then you have these loose ties, which, to go back to that TED talk, would be a bit like the kind of 20th person, 20 to 50th people that join that big crowd in the field. You know, not the core group, but the people that came afterwards, when it's starting to become easier to join the group because there's just so many people becoming part of it. And then the third layer is the habits that are instigated by the leaders. So what does all of that mean? And how the hell can you use it? Which is what I thought when I first put this slide together. Like, to give you a real-life example, Rosa Parks, 99% sure you've heard of her. She was the woman who refused to sit down in a bus in Mississippi, I think, in the 60s, you know, kicked off a huge momentum in the civil rights movement. You don't need me to give you a rundown of what happened, but what I didn't know, and what I'm pretty sure you might not know, is the kind of backstory of why her story became so well known and lit a fire to the movement. Because actually, and this is what he points out in the book, she wasn't the first person to do that. A lot of other people, a lot of other black people had done the same thing, but their stories didn't light a fire, you know. So why did they, and they did it before her, so why did they refuse to sit down in a black bus, refuse to get up rather. Why did they refuse to get up and nothing happened? And yet when Rosa did it, it ground a whole community to a halt and ground the country to a halt. You know, what was the major difference there? And if, again, going back to those yellow personalities, if you're a yellow, that's a question that you're going to be interested in because, you know, if you understand why that happened, that gives you vital insight into how you can have a more effective movement or be more effective if you're part of a movement, okay? So what happened with Rosa Parks? Well, the thing with her was that she was a very unique person. She could fly. No, I'm joking. She couldn't really. I don't know. Maybe she could, Rosa. If you're watching, I don't mean to be silly. But she could actually, she was actually unique because she was very well known within her community. She had lots of different friendships with all cross sectors of the community where she lived, which is quite unusual at the time because at that time, most white people tended to stick together and most black people tended to stick together. There wasn't much diversification, obviously, because that was still very racist at that time. But Rosa was unique because she, through her work, and she belonged to a lot of different associations and societies. She did voluntary work. Because of that, she knew all kinds of people in her community at a close level, not just kind of just say hi in the street. She knew them. She was friends with them. So when she was arrested and literally kept in prison because she had refused to give up her seat, a lot of different people found out about it very quickly. You know, one of her friends actually called up all the people that she knew to rally up support for her. and I just want to check that I'm still, still here. And so she actually had all these different, it's almost like a spider's web, you know? Some people are very barely connected to their local area. And I'm not saying, by the way, you don't have to be very well connected to your area to start a movement. I'm going to share why as we go on. But in the 60s, you kind of did. So at that time, she knew all these people. So when she was arrested, it caused a scandal, okay? So she had the close ties and the friendships, and not just within one segment of the community. She had it within all kinds of segments, all kinds of classes, races, and genders. She had male friends, female friends. She just got on with a lot of people. She was a real connector, I can sense. The kind of person that likes to be around people, likes to talk to them, and as a result, you know, tends to have a lot of different friendships. So at the second level, loose ties, which aren't as close as friendships, you know. Like I said earlier, like going back to that dancing guy, the kind of people that came after the core group is like those friendships. So because of all these friendships that Rosa had, she also, by extension, had loads of loose ties throughout the community. That spider's web effect again. So loads of, you know, word spread really quickly about her case through different neighborhoods, through different circles of influence. And so she had the loose ties as well as the close ties. So then the third piece, the habits. Well, what the hell was the habit, you might be thinking in this case study? Well, the interesting thing is that when one of Rosa's friends and lawyers actually called, you know what, I think it was actually Martin Luther King. I might be remembering that incorrectly. It doesn't really matter who it was, but I think it was actually Martin King. Basically, the kind of the rally person that was getting everyone to know what had happened to Rosa, he had the idea that to show that this was not okay, you know, to show support for her, which a lot of people wanted to do, they decided to encourage all black people to refuse to take the buses and to walk to work or to just not go to work. And they knew that if they did that successfully, the bus company would lose a lot of money and it would disrupt a hell of a lot of things, you know, like a domino effect. They would get to work late, some of them wouldn't even go to work, people wouldn't have, so therefore jobs that only those parts of the community were doing wouldn't get done, therefore other people would be affected. And they initially, interestingly enough, this was not a popular idea because a lot of people, even though they cared about Rosa, a lot of the black community didn't necessarily want to miss out on work and money because they weren't exactly making a lot of money anyway. And here they were being asked to not take the bus or to walk for an hour. But because she had such close ties and because there were so many different kinds of people involved, the feeling went for her, and people actually just overlooked their personal issues and decided to support the cause. And so the habit was stop taking the bus and find another way to get to work. We have to show the bus company this is not okay. And so this was a habit that they put in place. And I think even that wasn't a new thing. I think that had already been tried, but it hadn't lasted for very long. But because there was all this other stuff going on, the close ties and the loose ties, when this time round, when they asked black people not to, and this is obviously black leaders, asked their fellow black members of the community, don't take the buses, people actually listened. And they started to form the habit of not taking the bus because it went on for a while. It wasn't just a one-day thing. You know, for a period of weeks, people stopped taking the buses, and it spread to other places. It wasn't just in the town where this all kicked off. And so, because of all those things, a movement, like a fire, was lit. And as we all know, the rest is history. You know, literally, it caught fire and spread across the whole civil rights movement, changed American law, American history, and a history for the whole world, really, because it had a knock-on effect for a lot of other countries. And so it's just really interesting to know that backstory, because when you do, it makes it a bit more understandable. You know, I personally, I knew the story of Rosa Parks, but I didn't know all of that back history behind it. And in fact, there's actually another quick example which also illustrates this, just so you can really get a sense of it. And it's also from the Civil Rights Movement. And it was actually in 1964, black people, there was actually the Civil Rights Movement had created this thing called the Freedom Summer. And what it was they were getting people to come and register black voters. But there wasn't enough people to do this because a lot of racist people didn't want to register black people. So what happened was, on university campuses, there was this drive to get students to come down to the towns in the South and to register black voters. So it would mean going for several weeks and not being paid, but it was organized at the start of the academic year. Students signed up for it, and they knew that this is what they were signing up for. So the interesting thing is that this was actually a guy who researched this many years later. He found that over 1,000 students at one massive university signed up for this program, and yet only 300 people actually showed up for the summer event to register the voters. And when he was studying this, he was like, well, why did so many people drop out? And what was the difference with those 300 people that did actually go, that stuck to what they said they would do? And this is where it gets interesting. It wasn't a gender thing. There was just as many women as men who didn't go down to the summer registering. It wasn't a class thing because there was all kinds of different people who dropped out. It wasn't like a type of interests, you know, where some that were doing maths or some were doing humanities. It wasn't that, because there was a really wide variety of people that dropped out. The one factor he found, which was the only thing that stood out, you know, that differentiated the people that actually kept their word and went to the Freedom Summer, was religion. And I'm not saying this to say that religions are the kind of movement we should aspire to. I'm actually not religious at all, but it's an example of the close ties and the loose ties and the habits, because what he found was that the majority of students who actually went down and did the registering of black voters were Christian, and he found that it wasn't because of some kind of superior way of being in the world, you know, because they were Christian. It was peer pressure, because they'd sort of all told each other that they were going to be going to Freedom Summer. And when he interviewed people and found out, you know, asked them, why didn't you go? Many of them said, well, I didn't really want to go anymore, or other stuff had come up, but I knew if I didn't go, I'd already said I would, and people would think that was bad, and I just didn't want people to think bad about me. And it was actually peer pressure linked to the close ties and friendships and the loose ties, like a community. And I guess the habit part is, you know, this, you know, in the kind of Christian way of do unto others as you would like done unto you. You know, if you say you're going to do something, then do it. So that's obviously a massive habit instilled through the centuries, through the teachings of Jesus, but let's not go down that wormhole. Long story short, it's just an example of how, you know, when you have all of this in place, it moves people in a way that they just won't be moved otherwise. Okay? So this is just useful for you to know for whatever endeavor you're undertaking, because it will help you make sure you have the pieces. And again, I just want to emphasize here that creating a movement or being part of a movement is actually really fun when you're a yellow personality or you're dominantly yellow. You know, I personally don't think I'm just a yellow. I think I'm a little bit blue as well, but mainly yellow. And, you know, when you're that kind of person, it's just kind of fun. You know, it's what you enjoy. It doesn't mean you want to be sat in a team meeting all day long, but it does mean that you like having it being part of your life, you know, it being part of the recipe. And when it's not there, it feels like there's a hole, or something's not quite as good as it could be. So this is information about close ties, loose ties, and habits will help you just become more aware of the movements that you're part of and how you can actually start to create a movement if that's what you'd like to do, or bring more people into a movement that you're already part of. You know, you don't have to go out and start everything from scratch. Like Derek was saying in that TED Talk, actually, you know, there's a lot of, I think this probably comes from more kind of red personalities. There's a lot of glamour about being a leader and the first one to do something. But actually, if you care about the outcome and the change that you want to see in the world, you don't really care whether you're the one that started it. This is what I have found. Sometimes you have to take your ego out of the picture, and sometimes we do have this kind of longing to be the first one or to be the big leader. I think that's actually just a program that's kind of runs across this reality, across this world. And what do I mean by that? I mean a way of behaving that's so common that you think that's just what you are. You know, like, until you realize you're doing it, you don't even choose whether you want to do it or not, you just do it. You know, I actually had this going on as well at one time, and then I realized, oh, this isn't actually me. I don't really care if I'm the one that gets the glory or that is the, you know, the leader. I just want this to happen. I want this to change. You know, and when you can get to that space, you'll become even more effective. Then you actually become a leader just of a different kind. You know, some people call it a conscious leader. You're just moving towards the change you want to see, and whether people follow you or not is irrelevant. But you're heading there. You're not waiting to be acknowledged for it or to be given credit for it. Okay? So just feel free to interrupt me if anything's not making sense or anything. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Jane. Yeah, so actually, the next part, just before we kind of come to how you can create your own movement, which is probably what you're wondering by now, there is actually just one caveat I wanted to bring up with this whole thing that we've been talking about. Because when you are the kind of person that likes to be moving towards a cause or likes to be taking action on a cause, sometimes it's easy to get sucked into things that look like movements but aren't actually movements. Okay, so I did want to bring this up because this has actually happened to me, and so I just have a sense that it could happen to other people, and it might have already happened. The cool thing is it's okay if it happens. It's not like you can come back from it, and it's just like a learning experience, really. But there is a difference, basically, between movements, and maybe I should have said this right at the start, but it felt like this was a good place to put it in. There's a difference between movements, communities, and the C word, cults. So, and I'm just going to share, this is just my perception of this, having been in the activist field for 10 years and been interested in this whole topic for, like, you know, coming up to 16 years now. A movement is when you have a huge variety of people moving towards a common aim, is just the best way I can describe it. A huge variety of people moving towards a common aim. Okay, it doesn't mean you're all moving in the same way, or that you're all following the same leader, or that you're all behaving in the same way. It means you're just heading to the same target, you know? It's like you're walking in the same direction, but some people might be dancing, some people might be skipping, some people might be hopping, some people might be taking a private jet, others might be crawling, you know, everyone's different. A community is, I would say, where it tends to be less varied because it tends to be built on common values, which tends to group people together more who are more similar. You know, there's a little less diversity within a community. It tends to be around shared values. You know, for example, like a neighborhood is obviously the value is taking care of the hood where you live in, you know, the area where you live in. Or it could be a community around a particular sport, like a yoga community. It's kind of you have a shared interest. Okay, it's not really moving towards a vision. And again, and actually, a community can be part of a movement. Okay, and this might sound all kind of theoretical, but it's actually useful to know because it will avoid you getting drawn into the third category you can see there, cults. And I believe, and I define a cult as a group of people where they might be moving towards a common aim. They probably have shared values, but there's a lot of control going on, whether it's spoken or unspoken. You know, even if the cult is saying that it's not a cult and that there's no control happening, you know, you have to be aware of what's really going on. And sometimes, unfortunately, there are communities or movements of people that actually have more of this energy of a cult, where there is more control over people. And this can, again, be unspoken or spoken. So I've actually had a little bit of experience with this from a couple of different places. And so I just wanted to bring it up because when you do care about, when you do want to be part of something, you just have to be aware of what you're becoming part of. And a really simple way to sort of tell the difference, I believe, is look at the positioning of the leaders of whatever it is. Because, you know, a leader or a mentor is not going to try to tell you what to do in every aspect of your life. You know, they'll tell you what to do in specific areas where you want advice from them. You know, areas where they have expertise or specialized knowledge that you perhaps don't have yet. You know, that there's no kind of, they don't see themselves as being better than you. And this kind of echoes what Derek was saying in that TED Talk. You know, they see themselves as equals to you. They just happen to have some knowledge about something that you don't, and they recognize that you have probably knowledge about things they don't have. You know, there's like a reciprocity. When you can sense, when someone's trying to be a mentor in all areas or in many different areas of your life, they become a guru, okay? Because a guru won't tell you what to do in every aspect of your life. Someone who's trying to do that actually wants to be a guru, whether they're being honest about it or not. So I just wanted to share this because, you know, and I don't want to make this a whole big focal point of the whole training, but just to be aware of it, because if you do get passionate about causes, you know, sometimes it can be easy to sort of be drawn into things that don't appear to be that aren't what they seem. Cut a long story short, basically. So the cool thing is that once you become aware of this, you can just move on, you know, unless obviously there are some cults that are very, very controlling and restrictive over people, trying to stop them to leave. I was never part of something that was as bad as that, but, you know, if you are in one of those situations, then oh, I don't even know what to say to that. then find support groups and find some way of getting some kind of help from outside to get out of the group. Okay, I'm not even sure why I'm sharing that. I feel called to say it, so I'm just going to say it. And you can always contact me or anyone on my team if you feel like any of this is going on for you. Okay? And we'll be happy to sort of do what we can. Not that we're Superman or Superwoman, by the way. I'm just saying that on like a human level, you know, person-to-person level. So so once you know that and you're just kind of looking at what's out there in the world, and you either want to create your own movement or you want to become part of a movement, then this is the final thing to look at. Okay, and this is actually going to be the end of the training. You want to look at, and I'm going to give you like an actual real way you can do this, where you don't have to do it in your own local community. Because if you're like me, you probably like to travel. Maybe you don't like to travel, and you do want to be part of your local community, and that's cool as well. But you want to be making sure that you tick these boxes, the close ties, and another way to describe this could actually be called building a tribe. You know, Seth Godin, he's actually a marketing guy. He wrote a brilliant book about tribes, and the way that people, he's a great example of he understands yellows very well, and in fact it's not just yellows that become part of movements and tribes. They just tend to be much quicker to get involved with them than other kinds of people. So building a tribe, and that would be the close ties, the people that really get what you do, that are the first ones to get it, that to see your vision, to get excited about it, and to start dancing with you, you know, to go back to that hillside. Then the loose ties, these are the people that are not quite as connected to what you're doing. You know, they might not be as vocal, they might just be watching it. So they're more like your audience. And I'm actually going to give you an online example of how you can do this in a second, which you might have already guessed. But if you haven't, that's fine. So this would be more like an audience. You know, this is the people that you don't perhaps speak to on a regular basis, but they're there. You know, they watch what you do. They're interested in it. They like it. They're inspired by it, and they're kind of dancing as well. But they're just not quite dancing on the field with you right there. And then the habits, sort of cementing the change you want to see in the world. You know, this is actually how, you know, if everyone's just dancing on the hillside, nothing much is going to happen. If you can get people to do stuff, that's when change starts to happen, you know, ripples, like I said in the beginning. So an example I thought of with this is video. I just personally love video. I don't know whether you watching make videos or have never, you know, never done one. And this is just an example. You might think of other things, but I wanted to give you a concrete thing you could apply this framework to. So, for example, if you wanted to create a movement, starting from scratch, and again, you don't have to start from scratch. Oh, Jane, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I just said that I was reconnecting, so I was like, oh, I didn't want to make sure I was like talking on my own.
No, I heard everything.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. That happened once. It was really embarrassing. I was like, and
was that during your Zumba class?
No, oh, it was actually a hangout like this. It was about 2 months ago. It was really funny. And there was actually another person on it, another team member, but because she obviously dropped with the hangout as well, and I wasn't checking in often enough, I had just carried on blabbering on. So we had to like start it again. So so glad we didn't have to do that again this time. So video, yeah. And is there anything anything not making sense or you want to like bring out?
No, it's great.
Cool. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that confirmation there. So so then when you have, okay, so if you are taking video as an example, so let's say you want to, I'm going to give you something that I started working on as a story to sort of use. So I started to make videos about kindness, about random acts of kindness, randomly after discovering I loved making videos, and just as an activist, I was just interested in how much this could spread. And it's actually an ongoing thing. I haven't stopped doing it. But you can use videos. I just wanted to use the kindness idea as an example of what to create a movement about. But it could be anything. It really could. So let's say you want to create more kindness, or you want to, I actually wanted to contribute to, there's already a lot of people making videos about random acts of kindness in the world, so I just wanted to sort of add mine to the mix, to contribute to it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start making videos about me doing random acts of kindness. I'll film them, and I'll just put them on the internet. So I started to do that, and then I realized, well, hang on, I need to actually get people to do something at the end of this. Otherwise, it's just a bit like them watching me, you know, like a bit like going to a cinema and watching a movie, you know, going to a movie theater and watching a movie. So I began actually putting at the end of the videos, here's how to do this in your town. And because even if people didn't literally sit there going, okay, I'm going to go and hand out free fruit to people in my local village, I knew that it would plant a seed in their mind for them to go and do it at future times. And that's exactly what's been happening. I've had people sending me videos of them giving random people lifts in the streets. because it was raining, you know, and I've never made a video about that. But because they watched some of my videos, they just got the idea to do it when before they wouldn't necessarily have done it, and which is why they made the point of telling me about it. And even actually one video I made, I had put some notes up all over the town I was living in, that just kind of inspirational little notes, post-it notes, and I sellotaped them with scotch and just left them up. And so someone in Canada, literally less than 2 weeks later, I don't even know him. You know, now we've become friends on Facebook, but at the time I'd never ever spoken to him. So this was an example of a loose tie. He was like an audience member I had, but I didn't know this. He actually saw this video and decided to do the same thing with some of his friends at his college in Canada, in Toronto, and they went and spent a whole day putting up notes all over the mirrors of the toilets in their campus, saying things like, "You're beautiful, you can do it, everything starts with an idea," you know, loads of like little inspirational messages. And then they filmed it and sent me the video, and that literally made my day. And so that, without even actually realizing it, I was kind of building a habit into what I was doing. You know, getting people to make videos of kindness, you know, of random acts of kindness that they were doing or that they witnessed. Okay, so through making videos, and again, this is just an example. I'm not saying this is what you should go out and do, but you can make videos about something, and through that, you'll start to connect to people who are really into what you're doing. You know, you'll build a tribe. And then what happens with that is that you start to build this outer layer of an audience, people that aren't quite as hot on it as the first people, but they are, and usually what happens is those people start to become more into the tribe the more time goes on, especially if you keep going. If you stop, you know, then obviously it all peters out. But then having this third element of the habits, you know, a call to action, I call it as well, where you're actually saying to people, look, this is what you could do. Get into the habit of thinking, how could I do something kind today or this week? Or when you have an opportunity in front of you to do something kind, grabbing it instead of just sort of letting it pass. You know, you're building that habit into people. And so with video, you can actually start to create a movement. And actually, there's a lot of people on YouTube who've done this very successfully. You know, one that I came across was Global Love Letters, and you can find them on YouTube. I'm actually going to come back here because I've not got any more slides here, so I'm just realised it might be more fun to actually see a person. But Global Love Letters. Oh, whoa, it's really dark. And hi, Lisa Lotta.
Hi.
Hey. Oh, so I'm sorry about the bad lighting. That's really lame, I just realised. But anyway, Global Love Letters, they encourage people to write nice things on a piece of paper and to just leave it in letterboxes or in the local shop or just about town, you know, random places. And they do this and make videos of it, and they tell people to do it and tell us about it on our Facebook wall, you know, tell us what you're up to. And so that's another example. You know, they have the tribe because they have volunteers, they have people that come to Brighton in the UK where they started it and take part in the challenges they do. Then they have the global audience because through YouTube they're reaching masses of people, and on Facebook through social media. And then they have this habit because they keep saying to people, do a love letter, tell us about it, you know, spread the love, literally. It's a really beautiful idea. So that's like a way of doing this online. And some people might say, well, yeah, but that doesn't really do anything, you know, it's all very well talking about it, but you need to do it. But here's the thing, you know, love letters, the videos I was making, they're literally leading to people doing stuff in their daily life, you know, like not just watching a TV screen, computer screen, they actually did stuff in their lives. And that's what you can do. Or, you know, I'm just giving you an online example because I'm just really interested in social media as a way to create change. But you can do this in your community. If you like going out and meeting people, then you can actually start to build ties, close ties, and then have the looser ties of people who start to know what you're doing, and then have a habit, some kind of thing that gets people thinking about the movement. Kind of, it builds into what they do. You know, otherwise it's just an idea. So you want to have a look at what aspects will make what your movement is doing translate to reality. So it's not just a concept out here. It's actually affects what people are doing, their behavior, because that's what actually changes the world. Is when you change behavior. You know, first of all, you have to change awareness, but you want to change what people are doing. And that sounds really like a George Orwellian. It's not meant to be, but I'm going to speak a bit about how to also become part of a movement, and actually how you can become part of the movement that I'm part of and that these guys are part of, that you can see here, or hopefully you can see them. If you can't, then we also have Liselotte here from Sweden. Do you want to say hi, Liselotte?
Hi.
Hey.
Hey.
Good to have you. And I love that you're always in like loads of color.
Like you say, you always.
Yeah, like everything always like matches, like the reds and purples. It's
just coincidence.
Yeah, but it's great actually. You know, when I was working politics, a lot of the I would go to these trainings on how to stand out as a woman in politics, and some of the things they would share was to wear colorful clothing, because men tend to wear grey suits and dark colors. So if you're in the parliament in a bright red suit, you're automatically gonna, you know, and you're a woman. But they said it gave you like this extra presence, not just I'm a woman. It's like, hello, I'm willing to be seen. They didn't describe it like that. That's how I perceive it. So, hello, Liselotte.
Hello.
Yeah. Do you guys want to share anything from what I've just been showing before I just add this last part about being part of a movement? Like how to do that. Not just how I'm going to show you how you can do it with our movement, but how to do it in general. Like I just want to make sure I'm giving you space here to say something if you would like to.
I don't know if I have anything really to add. It was all great, and I think we can all start a little movement. It doesn't have to be, like you said, this grandiose, too big. It just starts with one person. It starts with one person. That one person could be you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true, because I think that's what stops a lot of people realizing how powerful they can be. Like this idea that we're not powerful. You know, people think you have to be Obama or Martin Luther King or Gandhi, or have this major opponent. You know, like some massive thing that everyone will rally around. You know, like colonization or racism. And so people kind of think, well, I don't have a major thing I can oppose and get people to support me with. I'm not, you know, a civil rights leader, and so they don't do anything. And actually that makes you so much more powerful. Like the sheer fact that so many people don't do anything means that if you are the one that sticks your head up above the crowd and does do something, you, by sheer fact of you actually doing that, you become a leader, and you can actually start to create other leaders that pop up because they get inspired by you doing it. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that is so true. I think a lot of us are really afraid of the word leader, like what it means.
Yeah.
But like in the example of the video, you know, it was the first follower that created that leader.
Exactly.
Really interesting shift and a really interesting mindset that once you get another person and then another person, it just kind of, you don't have to be the one and only leader. The whole group of people, by sheer of joining together, lead the whole tribe.
Exactly. And that's what starts to create change. It's like when Gandhi led 200 million. I just have to say that, like, every time I think about that, I have to like say it twice to really get the full weight of that. India is a massively populated country, obviously, but still, that's a huge number of people. You know, like the population of Britain is 69 million people, so that's twice the population of Britain, and then some, all walking and agreeing with Gandhi. You know, he was obviously the figurehead. He's the one we remember. But if he had been on his own, with just the guy that was writing down what he said, and his wife, and a couple of supporters, we wouldn't even know who he was today. You know,
Right.
we wouldn't think of him as this big epic leader. It's the 200 million people are just as important as he was.
Right.
It's that TED video is just so brilliant. I just think it just. I
Yeah.
wish a lot more people would watch that. So yeah, it makes you realize that it's actually there's a humility and a power in being willing to be a follower.
Right.
You actually become a leader, I think, because you actually inspire other people to start taking action on stuff. Yeah.
So true.
Lisa Lotta, is there anything you wanted to add before I just finish with this last piece?
No, I just agree with everything you say. And,
Cool.
just like you, Jane, said, it doesn't have to be this huge. You all that you have to be very woo like this, but you can start in a small way to make change.
Exactly. Yeah. And what the final piece I wanted to add here is that if you feel like you don't have the time, or you know you're kind of a yellow person, and you do want to do something towards a cause, but you know sometimes it's not easy to know where to put you. You know, like I've literally been at one point I was a volunteer on like 2 different committees. Like one, I was organizing an event. I was a professional lobbyist. I was literally like all my time was taken up with women's rights, and you know, it doesn't have to look like that. I was just kind of going the extreme way. Something that I realized after getting really ill was that it's actually sometimes more effective and more, because you can do it in a more sustainable way, to look at what changes that you would like to see in the world. You know, if you know, there's probably more than one, but what is one thing that just, when you really think about it, it makes you cry? You know, like, and I don't want to get all emotional here, but what is one thing that, if it wasn't like that anymore, it would just make you so happy, and you would have no qualms having children, for example, or seeing young people come into the world, because you would feel like the world was slightly different now. You know, I'm not saying it's a bad place right now, but what is one change that just touches you so deeply that, you know, you'll do what it takes to be part of something that contributes to it? You know, like for me, that's poverty. Just above all else, like that was the first thing I ever became involved in. I just always had this really strange feeling that I just remember looking around at the news of children with bloated stomachs, and like I remember really vividly Band-Aid, you know, like Live Aid, the song that they always play at Christmas. There's an English song, but it had loads of rock stars. Do they know it's Christmas time again? Like I was a child when that came out. I'm not sure about everyone watching and you guys, whether you've heard of it or not, but that really stuck in my mind for years and years and years. And I just felt so weird. I was like, well, why? It feels really strange that we have these inequalities. You know, it feels like they shouldn't exist. And so for a long time I was always part of very left-wing movements to sort of campaign for better distribution of what we have. And then after being ill, just realized that, well, hang on, what if there are infinite resources and we can actually create way, way more than we think? And why can't I help to show that and be that by doing it and helping other people to do it, you know? So just to share my personal story as an example of how you can become part of a movement, you know, you don't have to be the leader, but you become like a micro leader. You know, after realizing I wanted to do something towards a cause again, I found myself doing network marketing, which sounds really strange to a lot of people. Like a lot of my activist friends don't even really like what I do anymore. They don't understand it at all. They see it as, you know, Sandy just wants to get money now, and that's really interesting, I find, because it's actually, you know, they don't, and some people do get it, but what I wanted to just share with that is that sometimes you have to just be willing to go out and dance like that crazy guy in the TED fields, even if no one gets it. Because I know the reason I do what I do is that it's part of a movement which is actually waking people up to, we can create beyond what's normal, you know, beyond the matrix of going to work, getting paid per hour, just having just enough to survive, which maintains this whole the poverty structure on the planet. And I'm going off on a tangent here, but basically, you know, when I realized that poverty was the thing that makes me cry, is the cause that I feel probably the most passionate about. And you don't have to have just one again, but you might find there is one that really speaks to you more than any others. Then I looked at, okay, well, how can I do something about this? And it was actually through asking the universe for guidance and just constantly asking questions. You know, what would help me change the world? What would help me be fulfilled and have a good lifestyle, not fall ill again? And that led me to what I do now. But I just wanted to share that because sometimes, you know, I didn't create network marketing. I didn't create the movement that I'm part of. I'm not a leader of it. But I have joined it because I see that it's going to the change I would like to see in the world. That it's one way to create that just to me seems more effective than a lot of things I've personally done. and so then moving towards that, you become like you become like the 200 million behind Gandhi, you know. And actually, when you do that, you become a leader because there'll be people who haven't even heard of the 200 million that want to come and join it. You know, and you become a leader in your communities and your loose ties and networks for people that are looking for that light as well. You know, for whatever change you want to see, there are other people that see it too. And so you just have to find a way of actually either starting your own movement or looking at what's already working and how you can support it and contribute to it. So I wanted to add that because sometimes we feel like we have to go out and start 200 million on our own, and you don't have to do that. You know, you can actually, like Derek was saying in the TED Talk, there's a quiet humility and power to being willing to be a follower. And ironically, by doing that, you actually become a leader because you'll inspire other people to realize that this is possible, whatever you're working towards. And they'll add their own energy and their own stuff, and then it starts to have ripple effects. And I wanted to share, you know, as the very last piece here, the movement that we're actually all part of, because Lisa, Lotte, and Jane are part of my team, part of the same movement. I just wanted to use it as an example, a final case study of what we've been talking about during this training. Because it's actually a network online marketing company, and whether you want to be part of it or not, that's totally fine. But for those of you that already are part of it, I think this will give you a new way of looking at it. You know, like it started out as one guy's vision, and I think of this guy as a bit of an alien because I think he has the same sort of sense that I did, that so many of us do. That it's crazy that there's not more money on this planet, you know, that there's so much poverty and struggle. And he had made a lot of money on the internet, and he was spending a lot of time trying to get people to do the same thing. And actually, a lot of people don't realize that he was doing this. You know, even though he was making multiple 5 figures at that time a month, he went through a 3-month period where the trainings that he'd done on the internet weren't working. You know, people weren't really duplicating his success. And so he decided to do live coaching, and he spent 8 hours a day, you know, from 9 till 5, coaching people one-on-one to help them have an internet business. And after 3 months, he still didn't have anyone having any kind of success. He was like, that doesn't work either. and so he spent a lot of time thinking, well, what the hell is going to work? And he actually got to this point where he felt, well, the business I personally do, because he was not just doing online marketing, he was doing network marketing. the big message of network marketing is that you can have a business that it's not just you know, it's part of a network, and it can actually create a lot more time freedom and money than most other things. And so he was selling this, but no one was actually having the result that he was selling. So he decided, well, I don't want to keep selling it anymore because I'm just selling thin air, and I'd rather just be broke than sell this. So he stopped doing anything, took time off, a few months off, and just went hiking a lot, had money coming in, and one day he got this idea for a company that would actually pay most of the money it made back to the people that were part of its network. In contrast to most companies that were around before, which tended to do the opposite. You know, most of the people in the network didn't get much of the money, and the people at the top knew about this and actually even structured their business around that fact. And so he didn't want to be part of that. So he got this idea for something that would be completely different. He told some of his closest friends. So he had the first layer, the close ties. He held a meeting with 30 people where he explained his vision and his idea. And those people got involved. So we're still talking about the close ties here, the tribe. And then he built the company with another partner. And then we start to see the audience effect, you know, like those people coming onto the hillside and dancing and becoming part of the movement. And then, this was what I found interesting when I was thinking about this, he inspired people to build habits that would build the movement bigger and stronger. Habits that encourage people to read every day, to do personal development every day, to literally listen to something that would help them build the business and help them become prosperity consciousness is another way of putting it. To get them to write every day, to do something for their business every day. Like there's all these habits, 8 of them, that you're encouraged to do when you join the company that he built. And that's not just coincidence, that's because that's what makes a successful movement. So some people look at what we're part of and say, well, that's a community or that's a cult. I had a couple of people when I first started doing it that said that. And the thing for me that makes the big difference with a community or a cult is that there's just such a massive diversity of people doing it that it's way bigger than a community. Like it's just so varied, you know, all different ages, races, genders, nationalities, types of people, you know, motivations, things that inspire different people. You get everything, and the energy of the whole company comes from the guy that started it, and he is a very kind of unique person really, because there are a lot of people like this, but they're not a majority in the world. They're actually like 1% of the world's population. I've been doing a lot of studying on like values and stuff and how people kind of tend to be, and he's the kind of person that is really fascinated by how the world works, doesn't really have much ego or judgment in him, and he will very often say, you know, I know how to do this really well, but I don't think I'm better than you. I don't know anything about this or this, you know, I just know about this. And so he's created this movement of showing people how to get to this thing that he knows how to do, but he's not trying to like tell people what to do in every aspect of their lives. You know, Empower doesn't have trainings on, you know, how to overcome health issues or, you know, how to make a baby or I don't know, like all this other stuff. It's very focused on what it does on internet marketing and personal development. You know, of really specifically with changing your money mindset and success mindset, and that's it. You know, and so it's for me it feels very clearly the definition of a movement for all those reasons. So if you want to become part of the movement that we're part of, then get back to the person who brought you here, whether that was Lisa, Lotta, or Jane, or one of my other team members, or me, and there'll be a link around this video which you can click on to get more information or to join. You can contact us, ask us questions, ask me questions, happy to answer them. But as I said at the beginning, I did want to share that, you know, I am part of the movement, very deliberately so, because that's what I love to do. And this is a movement I completely believe in. And I just get more inspired about it the more I'm in it. You know, I've been doing it for 18 months now, and it's allowed me to move to Portugal, to start having way more impact in the world than I've been having since I left campaigning, and to also be part of something. Because, you know, coming back to that thing about collaboration and being in a movement, that's just something that I personally enjoy. And if you're watching this and you feel like you're very alone with everything, or you're just having to do everything from scratch, or you're in something that just doesn't deep down feel very good and you can't put your finger on why, then I encourage you to look at what we're doing, see if it's a fit for you, and to start if it is. And if it's not, that's fine as well. But I want to just put it out there to you because I know there are people looking for what we do. And if you're one of them, then this is exactly, you're feeling inspired right now, and so something's been lit inside you because you know that you found something you could be part of, and that you can channel your energy into and start to move mountains way more than you may possibly have thought you could before. That's how I felt. So guys, did you want to add anything to what I just said before we wrap up here? I've just realized I've gone way over time, so sorry about that. My clock.
I have nothing to add, Sandy. That was brilliant.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Did it give you some new awareness about anything in particular, Jane?
Off my head, I mean everything I love. So I just can't think of just one thing, but that we just need to start leading from our own lives instead of kind of following, you know, and being on the whole hamster wheel and everything, but just go inside and find, you know, ask yourself some questions. What would I like to change? What would I like to see different in the world? What can I contribute? What is my, you know, what's inside of me that does need to come out?
Yeah.
That I need to, yeah, so.
Beautiful.
And there's always somebody out there that shares the same feelings, thoughts, emotions about what's going on for you. So you'll find someone.
Yeah.
Even if it is a small movement, even if it stays small, it's okay. At least, and that's okay, you know. It doesn't have to grow huge, global. But if it stays small, like in your neighborhood even, and then you inspire other neighborhoods to do the same thing, or look at you and go, what are they doing? Wow. Or, you know, something as simple as every spring cleaning, you know, your little street, get together and clean and help each other, you know, get ready for the summer by doing their lawns or raking leaves in the fall, or and then having a barbecue, whatever, you know, just connecting.
I love that.
And creating something together. You know, it can be as small as that. Yeah. That might it might spill over to the next street, and they see you guys doing it, and it's like, oh, well, why don't we do that? That looks like so much fun.
Exactly.
Plus, then yard work is such a gigantic, you know, weight on your shoulders, but everybody's there to help us out. I don't know. It's something. It's just an idea.
Yeah. No, I love that. That actually reminds me. I have a friend in the town I used to live in. She started a blog. Unfortunately, I think I should have mentioned this as part of the training. She didn't stick with it, but then she had a baby, so that's probably why. But she started a challenge where she was only going to use local products for a whole year and blog about it, because she wanted to inspire people to not buy stuff that's been imported or travel across the world. And it was a really great idea, and when the video she posted, it got loads of engagement, because she was using social media mainly, and then she kind of stopped. But she got people thinking about it and like leaving comments on her blog, and it's exactly like you said, Jane, like it plants seeds, and if I know she comes back to it next year when her little one's a bit bigger, it can just take off like you know, sometimes we just don't know how big something can go. But like you said, it doesn't even have to go big. I think it's, you know, it's that doing something, you know, so that you satisfy that urge in yourself, and also you actually leave an imprint, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
very true.
then I see this how it just comes into my mind that I encourage people to use stuff they have in their home instead of going buy shampoo and things like that. And I see how I had started a little small movement to make change around. Yeah.
I just remembered the effect. Oh, after all that, I like,
You know, you sometimes forget what you do. It's
yeah,
crazy.
I yeah.
You mentioned this about this blog about eating local foods. I just, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Because for people
Yeah.
watching, Lisa Lotta actually has a beautiful company called Move On, and she makes her own products using, this is the unique part, only using products that you can find in your kitchen. And she actually shows people how to do it themselves if they want to as well. And so, yeah, actually, you were coming into my mind as I was talking about my other friend, because I was thinking, well, this is, you're actually starting a movement of your own kind, Lisa Lotta, by doing that, because you're starting to build a tribe. I'm seeing it before my eyes of people that are already buying the products that you make, that like the stuff you post, and you'll start, you know, building up the looser ties, the people that just aren't perhaps buying anything yet or doing it, but they're kind of watching what you're doing, and you'll start spreading the seeds of, well, maybe I can actually, instead of using all these chemicals or putting
And
stuff in my body
that
that.
is a beautiful part because I see people post on Facebook now have discussion about I use this and I have this instead of fluoride in my toothpaste. They come with own ideas and I just love it to see that
Oh,
people have started to think about it a lot.
yeah. Ah, yeah, because then I would just wonder actually, what habit could you? I would. This is something you can look at, you know, in a fun way. Just ask the universe or ask for some kind of idea. Like, what's a habit you could? I guess the habit is getting people to actually use what you make. But I feel like there's another habit you could add to what you're doing, you know, to get people to really sort of build this into people's behavior. Maybe it could be to stop buying stuff with chemicals in it. You know, it could be a behavior which stops something. It doesn't always have to be something
Or
proactive.
even or even getting them to actually look on the labels. I mean, that's a habit that a lot of people don't have. And when you get them to actually, if you can help them identify what the negative chemicals are and just say, okay, next time you're at the supermarket or you're buying your shampoo or your face cream, have a look and absolutely stay away from blah, blah, blah. You know, it just to create an awareness
Yeah,
and that habit of looking.
yeah. So Lisa Lotta, what if you actually added that to some of what you do? You know, like just in a regular way, so that people start to associate that with what you're with your brand. You know, with your what you're creating. Because a brand, you know, is kind of thought of as a marketing term, but I think it's actually it's linked to everything we've been talking about. Because if you're building a brand, oftentimes it's around an idea, you know, and some kind of something you want people to do or be. And so something that, like a tag, other people would call it, marketing people would say, like a way of, like one of my mentors, actually, marketing mentors, she calls it, she says, I don't like to use those things which follow people around on the internet. So they always see my advert no matter where they go. You might have noticed that on Facebook. You know, you see the same advert like 18 million times in 2 weeks. She's like, I will never use those things. I don't want to piss people off. But she says, what I do is I often tell them, write this down in my trainings, or get some paper and write this down, or this is something you want to remember. 'Cause she says, then I'm putting cookies in people's minds. She's like, I want them to remember what I'm sharing, and not from like she's not like, she has a brilliant way of getting people to realize the value that they have, and so she wants them to like just remember that all the time. So it's like, I could see you doing something like that, Lisa Lotta, with like,
And I have actually already, and in my events, and I have my event site on Facebook. there are people coming in now, and I write on different, not just only about my products, about, as you were saying, Jane, about chemicals. And now I have started a blog in Power. I've just launched it today.
Oh, yay!
Great! And there is but this is in Swedish. Some are in English, some in Swedish. But the chemical you should avoid, I have a long list that where people can just click there, go in and see what's all about. It's not ready yet. I'm going to add a lot more stuff in it.
Okay.
But it has started. So yeah. And often, like I said, you never think of what you're doing. I just do it.
Well, that's the beauty of it all. I think that's when you're not vested in the outcome, or you don't actually see into the future. You're just doing what you love and sharing it. It'd be amazing.
So much different. If you just
flow.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and I could just see like almost like a tagline, Liselotte. You know, like because it's not. I think people would like it because it would be. It's not like you're telling people to buy my soap. You know, you're saying like, what if you put at the end of all your blogs or whatever you're doing, check your labels. You know, or something like that. You know, like
consistent with that and just don't remember to check your labels today.
Exactly. Because then it's like it's starting to change people's behavior because it's people need multiple exposures to something to actually start being influenced by it often. So that works with everything, not just buying something, with changing behavior as well. Cool. 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 Well, thanks for coming out, guys, and we've got everyone still watching who was on at the beginning. So. I'm really happy that everyone's been here, and if you got something out of this Hangout, then I'd love to know. Leave some comments in the Google event or on Facebook or wherever you're watching this. That would be really cool. Thank you. And if you're inspired to start some kind of movement, even if it's within a bigger movement, if you're inspired to join our movement, then that's just brilliant. And if you're inspired to do something else or whatever you do, if this inspires you what I'm trying to say, I didn't plan this part out, as you can see. Whatever you're inspired to do after this Hangout, then I would just love to know, because it's knowing what people have done afterwards that makes doing trainings like this really fun. Because then you're like, like when that guy sent me the video of him having gone and put love notes all over their college campus. That literally made me cry, I'm sure at least a lot of the first time once someone said, I've stopped buying stuff with this chemical in it because of what you told me. That was a particular feeling, that's like, it's just one of the best things in the world. So I'd love to know. So thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have a great
you.
day. And go out and be the change that you wish to see, like in a real sense. So have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.